All right, I think we'll kick things off here. Yes, hello and welcome everyone to our first Lunch and Learn webinar here at Green Mountain IT Solutions. Thank you for joining us today. All right, today's topic will be ransomware. What is ransomware and how can I stop it? Uh, so, welcome. Uh, this is me, of course. If you're an existing client watching, you already know me, I hope. I'm Tim, the owner here at Green Mountain IT Solutions. If you're someone who is watching and we've not met before, hello, welcome. And my contact information posted on this slide. My email address, you can reach me if you have any questions or comments on this presentation. Tim at greenmountainitsolutions.com, or please visit our website, greenmtnit.com. That is the newer, shorter URL, so you don't have to type out Green MTN IT Solutions, just greenmtnit.com. All right, so uh, what is ransomware? Well, imagine this scenario, and maybe you've heard of something like this before, or hopefully not, but maybe you've even experienced it personally. So you come into the office one day, or maybe you're working from home now, so you come into the home office or sit at your computer, and lo and behold, there's a message popped up on your screen. Your files have been encrypted. Please send $10,000 in Bitcoin to unlock them. Well, what would you do in that situation? What can you do? And how do we prevent that from happening? So, this is what we call a ransomware attack. And ransomware is something that really happens out in the real world. Actually, just a couple of years ago, there was a big attack on a local retailer right here in Colchester, Vermont. I'm not going to name any names, but this was pretty big news. It was covered on WCAX, other news outlets, so you can find out who it was if you're curious. But this was a retailer in Colchester experienced a ransomware attack on their computer system, and they lost everything. They lost $2.3 million were the estimated losses to their company because of that attack, which included lost data, lost productivity, and yes, they lost all of their files. Now, how did that happen in this attack? I'm not certain, but I'm guessing that this particular company, they tried to pay the ransom, and this is something that can happen too. You try and pay the ransom in a ransomware attack, and you send the money and you still don't get your files back. So that's definitely a possibility. Even if you pay the ransom, you're not necessarily going to get your stuff back. All right, so that's ransomware, and this, you might be asking yourself, okay, well, there's viruses, there's data breaches, there's data loss. Tim, why are you singling out ransomware in particular? Well, ransomware is not only one of the most common cyber attacks in a small and medium business setting, it's also one of the most devastating. Got some numbers up here on the screen. So this would be after a major data loss. In that complete disaster nightmare scenario, like happened at this retailer, you've lost everything. All your files are encrypted and gone, inaccessible. Maybe you pay the ransom and don't get it back. So you've lost everything on your computers, your server, your computer system. In this case, here's some numbers from the research firm Gartner, very respected firm. After a major data loss, 43% of businesses just closed the door. They knew immediately they couldn't carry on. Another 51% within 2 years after the attack decided just to shut down. They couldn't make it, leaving just 6% who survived the incident. So the company I mentioned, the Vermont retailer, I mentioned actually is still in business 2 years later. So they were lucky. They were in the 6%. So most do not make it. So this kind of attack, ransomware, a cybersecurity threat, is an existential threat to your business. It's not going to be just a financial loss or loss of data or some downtime. This can put you out of business quickly. And look here at the numbers, 94% chance it will put you out of business. Okay, so what is ransomware anyway? We've hinted at it in the examples here, but let's just have kind of a basic overview of what is a ransomware attack. How does it work? What's the mechanics of it? All right, so ransomware is a type of computer virus. These days, virus almost sounds like an old-fashioned word. A lot of people will say malware or an attack these days as a more general term. But yes, a ransomware is a computer virus, but it does something special. It is, once it infects your computer, it's going to encrypt all of your files. So basically, it scrambles all your files, all your documents, whatever you have, are scrambled and basically password protected. And then the creator of this virus is going to demand a ransom payment to give you that decryption key, the password that can unlock your files so you can get at them again. Ransomware is also often what we call a worm, a type of virus that once it's on your network, it can worm around, right? It can spread to the other computers on your network. So a worm can be especially bad for a cyber attack. Think of your computer at your office or wherever you are. Everything that your computer can access, think of everything you have access to. If that computer is infected with ransomware, potentially this virus is going to worm its way into everything that you have access to. So if you're at a bigger office, you have a server, you have some file shares, cloud storage, a Dropbox or a SharePoint or what have you, Google Drive that you're able to access. All these things potentially are going to be wormed into and encrypted as well. That was in the case that we're talking about, the Vermont company this happened to in 2018. That was a worm-capable ransomware attack, and it infected everything on their network. Every last one of their computers, their server, the files associated with kind of their main inventory and sales software they were using, so everything. Okay, just a couple days ago, I put ransomware on my computer. No, it was not a big mistake. I did this on purpose, just as a demonstration so you can see what it looks like. So let's take a look at this video here. I'm not sure exactly if this is going to work. We're kind of streaming a video across the video stream, which is a little funny, but we'll give it a try. So first of all, don't be afraid. This is not my actual computer. This is what we call a virtual machine. This is a test computer that I did put the ransomware on. So start off, I've got just some sample files, a PDF document, a test PDF, just to show you that I'm able to open it and read it. Got a test Word document. Once again, I can open it, read it, everything's fine. And an image file down here, symbolic, my money. Okay, so that's my files before the attack. They're accessible. So I'm going to go ahead and launch the ransomware here. Okay, run it, and let's see what happens. Well, right off, not looking good. Bunch of files appear. There's a warning from my virus and threat protection. And hang on a few seconds, and let's see what happens. It's doing its work right now. It's doing that dirty work in the background. Let's see. Video is stuck for a minute there, but this is what we get. So they're going to change your wallpaper. Here's kind of the ransom note. Your files have been encrypted. This is, here's our ransom note. They're going to demand a payment, right? Oops, your files have been encrypted. So that's no good. And once again, just to show you how this ransomware works, let's see here. My files that I had, it's going to want to try and decrypt them. If I do pay, theoretically, I can hit that decrypt button and access the files again. And look, so remember, I had that test document, a sample PDF file, a sample Word document, a sample PNG image file, and right now the ransomware is working to encrypt those files so that they are not readable. So by the time we get here, sorry, I'm jumping around in the video, but look, so now there's my sample file. I try and click it to open it. Computer doesn't know what's going on. It's no longer readable. If you look quickly there, it's been the file extension has been changed. So that ransomware we just saw, that was the Wannacry ransomware. Probably the most famous and maybe the most destructive and costly example of ransomware so far. You might have heard of this. Came out in May 2017. So Wannacry, kind of an older and even out-of-date attack at this point. You'll notice if you're watching close in the video, I did have to disable my antivirus to allow it to run because this is kind of a known quantity at this point. And the antivirus knows to stop it, but potentially not so with a newer ransomware. It can bypass antivirus. So in any event, Wannacry back in 2017 was not the first ransomware, but the most successful. Successful is a funny word, but total losses worldwide estimated at $4 billion. And I'll tell you what, after Wannacry came out, it really began a golden age of ransomware. Once everybody saw how successful they were and how much money the creators had made off the ransom, everybody, every hacker and attacker and criminal wanted to get in on the ransomware game. So that's the golden age. You can see here listed a few organizations and companies that were affected. The National Health Service over in the UK, Boeing and FedEx here at home. So worldwide event. So that was Wannacry. And actually, just as a side note, no one knows, even to today, no one knows who originated this. I believe a couple guys in North Korea were indicted, but the actual Bitcoin, you all know what Bitcoin is, kind of an online currency. The holder of the Bitcoin wallet that the payments were being sent to, it's still unknown. So they made money off it. So we talked, why is ransomware so serious a threat? Potentially, you could lose all your files. You pay the ransom and you don't even get your stuff back. But even more than that, even if you do, let's say you pay the ransom or you have a backup that you can restore, there's still serious effects. So we're going to talk about two categories, our tangible risks and then our intangibles. So tangible risks, that's the hard stuff. So number one, just the cost of the ransom. If you do decide you have to bite the bullet and pay the ransom to get your files back, that can be tens of thousands of dollars. Sometimes larger companies, governments, state government or city government, a bigger city, are held up for $1 million, a couple $1 million. Hiring help for recovery. If you experience this attack, you may need to bring in me or another IT firm to help you clear up the mess. And then obviously just downtime and productivity. If your computers are down, all your files are gone, well, your people aren't working. If you're a leader in the organization or company, you're left to deal with this and sort out the mess when you could be working. So that's a cost right there. You're not making money while you're down. As bad as the tangibles can be, the intangible risks, in my opinion, are worse than the tangibles. And when we say intangibles, we're talking about mostly negative publicity and a hit to your reputation. If it's a tangible loss, if it's you got to pay the ransom, you got to pay for a tech firm to come in, you have some downtime. If your company is in pretty solid financial standing, well, maybe you can take a punch and recover from the cost. It's much harder to recover your good name and your reputation, especially if let's look at more sensitive fields. If you are, for example, you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, you're an accountant, your reputation is everything. You don't want people out there. Could be social media, could be Yelp reviews, Google reviews, or even just word of mouth stuff. Oh, hey, I was thinking of looking for a new accountant. I was thinking about, XYZ accounting firm. Oh, well, I wouldn't go to XYZ accounting firm. I heard they had a big ransomware attack last year. They had a big cyber attack. Who knows? Your information is not safe with them. And even if you're not in professional services, you're a retailer or wholesaler. Well, maybe you're storing people's credit card information. So there's an element of trust there. So difficult, if not impossible, to get your reputation back after such a thing. Okay, so enough of the scare tactic. That's what ransomware is and how it works. So let's get into part 2, which is how can we stop this? What is our defense strategy? Now, let me just say that this presentation is informational. I want this to be helpful to everyone. It's not some big sales pitch. I'm not about to say, well, subscribe to our ransomware protection plan. It's only such and such dollars a month. No, it's not that kind of seminar. I will certainly have some suggestions and some services that may be useful to you, but this is not a sales pitch at its heart. So just to get that out of the way. So I want to offer you here a defense strategy that is really quite simple and let's say 99% effective. We're going to break it down to just 2 things, believe it or not. Of course, it's not just it's not just 2 things that we need, but this is the most important 2 things by far, heads and shoulders above the rest. So I don't know, I feel like playing some music or ringing a bell or something, or wake up everyone, this is the most important part. If you take anything away from this presentation, burn this slide into your memory and these 2 things. You are going to be in a million times better position to defend your business from a cyber attack or ransomware incident if you, number 1, have good backups, and number 2, you train your people and look after the human element in these attacks. So we'll take a deeper dive here. Again, of course, it's not just these 2 things, but these are the 2 most important and sometimes the 2 most overlooked, to be honest with you. But remember it. I'm going to repeat it until I sound like a broken record. Have good backups. Train your people. Hopefully you got those 2 things by now. So we'll go in reverse order here. Let's look at the human factor first. Okay, here's a little quote from techradar.com. Not made up or fabricated. It's based on data of cyber attacks that have occurred. People are still the biggest security threat. 99% of cyber attacks require human interaction to execute. Okay? That human factor. Remember this. People are your biggest security threat in a small business. Your users, your staff, your employees, you may know and love them. Hopefully you do. But they are a big risk, the biggest risk to your company's cybersecurity. Once again, I repeat it over and over because it's so important. And hey, maybe it doesn't sound nice. Maybe you think I'm being mean. It's not an accusation at anyone here. It's based on my own professional knowledge and, to be honest, my own personal experience. So I'm not here to be mean, but I'm not here to sugarcoat it or to give you, you know, I'm here to give you practical advice. So people are your biggest risk. Believe me, I wish I could say, oh, I just hire me and it's all taken care of. I'm going to give you a firewall and antivirus software. No matter what happens, you're going to be all set. Trust me, I wish that were the case. But in honesty, it's that human factor, and that can also be one of the hardest things to lock down. So, what do I mean when I say, we'll go back 99% of cyber attacks require human interaction to execute. What exactly does that mean? Once again, sorry, it's not to be mean, but 99% of the time, if a cyber attack occurs at your business or a virus gets on your network, it is because of something that you did. Sorry, it's something you did. Uh, Most common by far with ransomware would be a bogus email attachment. So we get a malicious email. Here's kind of an example here. You can see we have a file attachment. Oh, totally not ransomware.jpg. JPEG, that would be a picture file. In this case, probably not really a picture. It's probably a disguised file that is going to be ransomware. So that's where we need that prevention. That's where the human factor comes in. If we click on that attachment, or someone working at our company clicks on that attachment and says, yes, run it, we've just opened the door. Human intervention has opened the door and allowed that into our network. So when we talk about, antivirus software, a firewall, trust me, these are all good and necessary. But for all of your efforts, if you still click on that link and say yes and everything else, there is a chance that you are going to be infected. Okay? Now, how can we mitigate this human factor, this human risk? Number one, user training and testing. Wish I had the numbers right here. I can't. I forgot to put them in the slide, but most companies and small business are not conducting any cybersecurity training. Just a little bit brings you head and shoulders above the average company. Some good cybersecurity training takes you a long, long way towards not being such an easy target for a cyber attack. So, when we talk about cybersecurity training, how do we spot a malicious email? How do we spot an email that's got a fake sender? How do we look at where a link that we're about to click, how do we look at where that's going to go and make sure it's not somewhere fishy? Things like this. Limiting access. Not everyone in the company needs access to absolutely everything on the network. So let's give people access just to what is needed. That way, maybe we'll get infected, maybe we'll have an incident, but at least we're not going to lose everything across the board. We'll talk a little bit more about limiting access in a minute. A culture of vigilance. What does that mean? It just means having a strong attitude about cybersecurity and letting people know, you don't have to be mean and don't have to be authoritarian about it, but just letting people know if someone on your staff is chronically clicking links in emails, they don't know who they're from, where they go, they're constantly downloading attachments, they're constantly trying to install software on their work computer that is not necessary, they haven't asked you about it, they don't know what it is, whatever. You don't have to be mean about it, but just to take them aside and have a quick word and say, hey, cybersecurity is a big concern of ours, and we got to be careful about this stuff, and we got to do a good job. That human factor is our biggest risk, statistics show. So it's up to everyone at the company to stay vigilant. We do offer here at Mountain IT Solutions, we are offering some cybersecurity training programs. Pretty reasonable, the rates, and pretty quick and easy. Just an hour or two of training for your people is going to put them head and shoulders above the rest, and just kind of get the wheels turning in their head. A lot of these trainings can be done remotely. Obviously, people suck at home now, but they can be done remotely, so please contact us. Training options. Another great thing to do for the human factor is testing your users. Again, this is not to make a big sales pitch, but we are here at Green Mountain IT Solutions offering a cybersecurity test for your staff. Once again, it's not a big sales pitch. If you want to use someone else, you can go out and find someone online. Lots of people conduct these tests, but it is something we do offer. Once again, pretty reasonable, pretty painless. What does the test look like? Well, I'm going to send a bad email or an example of a bad email with a bogus attachment or suspicious link to your entire team. Now, obviously, this is not going to have a real virus or anything in it. It's just a test. But I'll be able to generate a report for you once we get through and say, all right, listen, 75% of your team members clicked on the link they shouldn't have clicked. Here's who they were, perhaps. 25% actually reported the email, and so on and so forth. And you'll get a little report card on how your team is doing cybersecurity wise, and that has been shown to be a really effective measure in keeping folks vigilant. And once again, I can't say it enough. This is the biggest attack vector, is the human factor, the people factor, things coming through email or bad attachments, bad downloads, bad links. So please consider this strongly, getting some training and doing a little test for your team members. Okay, number 2. So hopefully you remember, because I repeated it so many times. Once again, I wish I'll have a little bell to ring or something. I wish you could hear it. This is the important part. So what were the 2 things? Hopefully you remember, because I repeated them so many times. People are your biggest risk. Number 2, have good backups. Backups, I'm kind of saving the best for last because they are the most important thing. The human factor is the biggest risk, but the backup is the most important thing. Why? Well, unfortunately, once again, I wish this wasn't so, and I wish I could sugarcoat it, but we, with the help of a technology consultant, we can get you 99.9% of the way there to being protected. Unfortunately, the reality is 99.9% still leaves that 0.1% chance that something's going to happen. There's always new attacks out there. There's always, I think they call them a black swan event, or the unknown, whatever you want to call it. There's always a chance of something just out of our realm of prevention happening. And that's where we need a good backup that we can count on. So even in the worst case scenario, we can restore everything from our backup and we'll be good to go. Okay, so backup strategies. These days, you want a backup on site and off site. So off site, what does that mean? These days, we're talking about some kind of cloud storage. Hopefully you know what that is by now, but some kind of cloud component to your backup. So your backups are being offloaded to the cloud out of your physical office. And that isn't just for cybersecurity or ransomware. Consider the possibility, God forbid, but if we had a fire at our office, if we had a flood, if we had a power surge, and we lost all of our computing equipment, that's when we need that off-site backup. Also, just having a good recovery plan. What does that mean? If you do have an incident where you need to restore the backup, chances are people are going to be panicking and kind of flustered and wondering what to do. that's where it pays to have a recovery plan that's been thought through beforehand of, okay, what do we need to restore first? What files do we need to get? Where are the backups stored? What's the password for the backup service? Who do we need to call? How fast can Tim get here to help us out? These kind of things. Now, for our clients here at GMITS, we do have a basic template recovery plan that's ready to be used for any client. However, if you are especially concerned about this and you'd like to sit down with me and make a more formalized recovery plan and see what this looks like, that is something that I offer. Please reach out to me. Backup isolation, another great point. We won't go on too much longer here, just to let you know, maybe 10 or 15 minutes more at a max. But in any event, isolating your backups. This is where we start to get into some of the kind of technical weeds of this stuff here, so I don't want to get too technical. But what does it mean to isolate your backups? A great practice is to use a different operating system for your backups. So if we're using Windows computers and a Windows server, most companies are. Well, if we have our backups on another Windows server, everything's Windows. The fact is that most viruses and ransomware targets Windows, so chances are that the virus is going to worm its way right onto the backup server if we're using Windows. So we want to take a look at using an alternative operating system besides Windows for our backups to hopefully prevent the virus or ransomware from jumping the gap onto that backup server. A Linux server, that's an alternative operating system that is used. A Synology device, that's the picture here on this slide, is a Synology disk station, a backup box kind of device that I use for some clients. Okay, these are all options, and once again, this is something that I do currently for our existing clients, but just a practice to note. Another thing in isolation, only the backup software should be able to access the backups. Once again, what does that mean? If I have backups in a folder, I should not be able to go on my computer and just open up the backups shared folder like any other shared folder and look at all the backups and, oh, great, the backup is working. No, once again, your computer, anything your computer can access, if your computer is infected, then the virus can access this stuff. So we want the backups to only be accessible through a backup software or a backup server or what have you. Okay. Physical separation. This is something that was kind of old school, and with all this ransomware going on, what's old is new again. Having a physically disconnected offline storage medium to have a backup in for a worst case scenario. This is going to give you just some extra protection, because if you have, let's say, an external hard drive that is unplugged, physically disconnected from any computer, there's no way, no how that anything is worming its way onto that. It's not plugged in, it's not on. This, kind of was an old school method where you might remember back in the day, people used to have rotating tape drives that they would rotate one in every day, or even floppy disks, things like that. Well, here we are. This has come back into vogue and is something that I am beginning to recommend to clients just as that extra measure of prevention. We are offering a service, pretty reasonable rates here. We'll set this all up for you. To have rotating disconnected external hard drives can be run by your staff, or as a managed service, have us come into your office every month, let's say, and take this backup and then disconnect the drive. Now, Hopefully, it doesn't come to a point where you need to restore a month back in time. But if you've lost everything, a month back is much better than completely starting from scratch. So this is an extra measure prevention and sort of the backup to the backup worst case scenario thing. Um, some people like to rotate these drives out and take one offsite with them, take it home in their bag, whatever. That's definitely a possibility, and we can even set up encryption on these drives, meaning that if you, for example, you like to have your assistant or someone take care of this, but you don't, what happens if they lose the hard drive or drop it on the street? Well, there's all my stuff. No, we can encrypt the drive so that the backup is still running, but, even potentially your delegate is not able to actually see what's on the drive without a password, which would be stored by you and by me and by management, obviously. All right, so those are the big two. People are your biggest risk. Keep a strong backup. I'll say it over and over. You're probably already sick of hearing it. Those are not the only two things, but if you cover those two things, you are probably better prepared for a cyber attack or ransomware attack than 2/3 of small businesses. You're going to be in the upper echelon just by covering those two things. Okay, so it's not just those two. There's some other honorable mentions, I'm calling them here, that I'll just go through really briefly, and we are going to wrap up here in just a minute. But the honorable mentions: access control. Okay, we talked about this a minute ago. So if we have an incident that occurs on one person's computer, they should not, and hopefully don't, have access to everything on the entire network. Let's say, for example, the receptionist at our company does not need access to every single file in every department. The accounting department does not need access to engineering files. The engineering department does not need access to the accounting files, so on and so forth. And that, if we do have an incident accounting, well, maybe their stuff is going to get encrypted, that stinks, but we'll restore from backup because we have a good backup. That's number one. And we don't have everything across every department hit by this attack. Limiting admin accounts. Now, more technical people who might be watching might be kind of screaming and shaking their fists in their chair. Well, no one except the IT person should have an admin account. No one should have admin access. I hear you. I agree with you in principle. Unfortunately, we live in the real world where that's just a reality in a small business where some people are going to want or need an admin access. A lot of people have software that does need admin access. They want to have some measure of control themselves and not just have everything in the hands of their IT firm, so on and so forth. But to the extent possible, let's not grant that admin access and prevent people from having it where it's not absolutely needed. And once again, that's just going to limit the spread of this stuff on your network and that worming. Updates, always important. Windows updates, we all kind of love to hate. They can take a long time. They seem to interrupt us every day at times, but always important to install your updates, Windows updates, as well as updates to any software, any programs that you're using. Install those updates promptly. Oftentimes, the updates are released to fix a security exploit or a security flaw that's been found in the operating system. So if there's a new bug in Windows, Microsoft is going to release an update to fix it. So if we don't install the update, then there's a foothold where a virus, ransomware, can worm its way in. Okay, these are basically, these viruses, these attackers, people figure out little tricks that they can use and exploit to make their stuff do its dirty business. So the updates are going to take away those little tricks and holes and vulnerabilities that they found. So please install your updates. More honorable mentions, okay? Antivirus software, obviously important to have, but please, I'll ring my bell, ding, 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 ding. Please do not consider antivirus software to be a silver bullet. A lot of people think, oh, well, I paid for antivirus and I installed it on my computer. So I'm all set. We're good for cybersecurity. No, I wish that was the case. But again, antivirus is only 99% effective on the best day. So there's always a chance a new attack can bypass antivirus. But that being said, you should use antivirus software. I always recommend MCSoft, which is a pretty reputable and lightweight. It doesn't slow down your computer. Bitdefender is also a good one. And believe it or not, on Windows 10, the built-in Windows security used to be called Windows Defender. The built-in Windows security is pretty darn good on Windows 10. So if you're more tech savvy or you're in a smaller office, I'm not going to say you can get by sometimes with the built-in security, and you'd be surprised at how effective it is. The advantage in a paid antivirus oftentimes these days is just manageability. If you have 5, 10, 15, 20, so on computers, it can be nice to have a paid product because it's going to allow you to manage all of those computers together from one central console. Spam filter on your email. Lots of times if we have a good spam filter, we can stop these bad and malicious emails from ever arriving. If you're using a Microsoft 365, used to be called Office 365, if you're using 365 for your email, there is a built-in spam filter, which is actually pretty good. So that's great to have. And then lastly, file detection. Oftentimes, we saw this in the example video, the Wannacry ransomware changed my PDF file, my .doc file, my .jpeg file, changed the file extension to Wannacry. So once again, this is not a silver bullet, and in fact, it's kind of a naive method in that a new ransomware is going to have different file extensions. Some of them don't change the file extension at all, but we can have some file detection set up, especially if we have a Windows file server. We can set up file detection where if the server notices, oh, here's a new file called you have Wannacry.crypt. Well, we can detect that file and stop things before it gets out of hand. All right, I believe that wraps up the presentation. So thanks for hanging in there. I know we went a little bit over time, but please, if anyone has any questions or comments, reach out to me. There is my email there, tim@greenmountainitsolutions.com. Please also visit our website. Once again, the brand new URL, greenmtnit.com. Okay, please feel free also to give me a call. I'm not going to post my phone number right on YouTube. I'll be getting all kinds of scam calls, but the phone number is right there at the top of the website, greenmtnit.com. So please do reach out. All right. Credits, just briefly, got to show this. Thank you to Slides Carnival. I used their presentation template. Sergey, Unsplash, Public Domain Vectors, Open Clip Art, among others, supplied all the images and photos. So thank you to all of them. All right, that concludes our first Lunch and Learn presentation. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching. I will see you guys. Keep an eye on the website and the blog in your email. I hope to be running these Lunch and Learn sessions every 2 or 3 weeks while we're all stuck at home anyways. So keep an eye on your email and the blog just to see when the next one will be coming up. All right, but thanks very much. I'm going to sign off, but thank you for watching and have a great day. Thanks.